The International Chamber of Commerce Sri Lanka is the national office of the Paris-based business organization. The ICC comprises of membership of 45 million members in 130 countries. Trade facilitation, export and import and cross-border trade and issues relating to freight forwarding and many other matters of importance are addressed by the ICC. ICC Sri Lanka works through several committees to debate, discuss and suggest solutions on subjects related to the mandate of the Chamber. Each of these commissions are led by professionals in the committee, with many committees functioning. ICC includes a membership committee, International Relations Committee, Policy and Advocacy Committee, Training and Development Committee, Banking Committee. ICC is the sole authorized guaranteeing agency for ATIACAN. It's an internationally accepted customs document which enables duty-free and tax-free temporary importation of items as commercial samples. The ATIACAN reduces costs and red tape. The ICC is also known for its popular publications invaluable for bankers, lawyers, arbitrators and anyone involved in cross-border trade. Its members are provided with a member's privilege card which includes discounts with multiple retailers. ICC Sri Lanka's vision is to be the organization of choice to advance international trade and investment for businesses in Sri Lanka. ICC Sri Lanka's mission is to be the change agent in national policy formulation and implementation and facilitator of global businesses with Sri Lanka and disseminator of information on the development of business utilizing the services of ICC Paris while continuing to be a facilitator of dispute resolution. In addition, the ICC Sri Lanka organizes seminars, lectures, meetings with business leaders, and gives recognition to Sri Lankan businesses for outstanding achievements. ICC can play a special role in connecting business to the world and be a driving force for all Sri Lankan businesses.
If you seek for business, look for insightfulness. If you seek for politics, look for anticipation. If you value lifestyle, look for the extraordinary. If you love sports, look for the passion. Daily FT. Be empowered.
Hello, good evening. I'm Ranjit Fernando, Head of Operation of International Chamber of Commerce. Thank you very much for logging into this webinar, and I hope you will have a wonderful time. And let me call upon Mr. Bhushan Dayaratna, who is one of the board members of International Chamber of Commerce, to deliver the welcome address.
Hi, good afternoon. Am I clear? Can be heard? I guess so. So on behalf of International Chamber of Commerce Sri Lanka, let me extend a warm welcome to our panelists today, Alain Sanchez, Ms. Chatri Munavira, Ms. Tanziza Yusuf, Dinesh Sapramadu, Hasita Bevardana, and Kanishka Virasinghe. And our moderator today, Nistar Kasim, and all the participants who have logged in for the session. The theme today is on the webinar, we are going to look at work online through 360-degree approach. We're trying to focus on 4 areas. One, network and cybersecurity, which is one of the key areas working online. And our panelists will discuss about how secure is our online work against cyber intrusions, cyberbullying, hacking, business espionage, and etc. How could it be prevented? And what are the best practices of network security that as an individual, as an organization should follow? How to manage if you manage detections, and if you have been found of online espionage or any other matter, hacking, how and who to be reported. The 2, we are looking at teamwork, motivation, and innovation. How can an organization promote collaboration among employees when work online? How an organization can track the task and performances given to the employees? How can we prevent overwork or underwork? How can an organization balance individual performance versus collective performances? How to motivate employees, manage their aspirations, how to promote teamwork, reward, and recognitions. The third area we are going to discuss is on challenges in remuneration and other employment laws regarding to work online. In there, where how the HR management can get involved, what will be or what will have to be changed from the current practices. Will the work online continue even after COVID? What are the legal status of employment, current employment laws, and the implications on work online? Employee grievances handling, and the number of hours that you should put to work. Finally, we are looking at psychological challenges of isolation, and today we are all working separately, unlike previously, where how would a person psychologically impact of isolation from people and their offices, distractions, the self-motivations, balance between home and work life, and then also how to handle stress when you're working from home. So I'm sure this elite panel will give a wealth of knowledge to all the participants. And without further ado, let me hand over to our moderator, Nistar Kasim.
Thank you very much, Bhushan, and thank you very much for all the panelists. On behalf of ICC Sri Lanka, SEMA, and the Daily FT, I'm privileged to moderate this interesting panel. I think we have a wide panel of experts drawn from technology, from HR, and also from advocacy perspective, as well as from the more softer sides of how to manage all this. So I would like to tell participants also, make it very interactive, so you can send in your questions as well as any observations you would like to have. I'd like the panel to sort of make it very more practical oriented in terms of how to manage this new normal that we're talking about. And and I would invite everyone, first of all, to make the opening remarks, and then I will have some questions follow-up questions based on some of the comments you all made. I'd like to invite Dinesh to make your own observations about this whole new norm of work online from home.
Thank you, Nista, and good evening to everybody. And I'm Dinesh Sapramadu, founder of Senate Group of Companies, and today's topic is actually very relevant. So we all know the current crisis is very different from whatever that we have ever seen, Sri Lanka or the world. And still there's no really a straightforward answer for that at this point. So we feel that there will be a lot of new norms that will emerge, and there will be a profound impact for business. And the new business model that will emerge will be the companies that are able and are agile. We will be able to kind of adopt these new business models and kind of move forward and be able to win the market in time to come. And again, I think that's the first part, and that new business model or new business model innovation is a separate topic. But today's discussion, the second topic, is all about people and organizations. And in my opinion, I think still we have not adjusted to the new or the HR teams for working from home. I feel that the whole new HR playbook needs to be developed for the working from home, which will be very different from the HR playbook that we had before. So with that opening remarks, I think we will discuss what some of the policies and procedures of this new playbook should look like, and how collectively that we can actually work in building this capability in our own organizations to handle the new normal of kind of working from home. So with that, look forward to a discussion and also to be able to participate. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dinesh, for that opening remarks. We are expecting 2 more panelists to join us, and we will also take them on board. I want to move on to Hasita to make his opening remarks.
Hi, good evening. Am I clear, Nishta?
Yes, fine. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Firstly, thanks a lot. Thanks, Dinesh, for the opening remarks from you. ICC, Nishta, all of you, thanks a lot for organizing this. I think this is not the first time any one of us attending to an event like this. Plus, I mean, there has been how many? Can't be tens, right? More than that. But how do we make this event a little bit different? To Nishta's point, and as well as to Dinesh, right? From a HR perspective, how this work? I will open it up and it's, I mean, we've been calling this for the last 9 months new normal. It's not new, right? It's here to stay. And we've experienced the second wave here to some degree, I must say. We were probably caught unready, or what you call it, doesn't matter. I think we're getting our act together, right, as a community to face it, and we will be good. And must this moment of time thank all those health and the relevant authorities for doing a great job. It's easy for us to say, but it's very difficult to implement this. So it's not a new normal as far as I'm concerned, and we are concerned. It is to stay. Let's accept that and embrace that this is the new way of working. This is the new way of also being, right? Doing things around us. It's just not work, which is changing. The whole life is changing, right? The schooling to how you entertain ourselves. The whole life is changing, and at the end of the tunnel, or whatever you want to call it, we are seeing a more digital world. That's the reality. Yeah. So the what I call a new digital world is there to stay, and we've got used to it for the last 9 plus almost 11 months now, almost coming to a year. And Microsoft CEO Satya, probably you heard this before, said something very profound, right? 2 years of digital transformation happened in 2 months. That's the reality, and we were pushed to do that. And at the end of the end of this curve, or at the end of this process, what will happen is we will re-emerge as a more digital economy, more digital lives, more of digital beings, so to speak. So with that, I'll hand it over to Nitsta. Thank you.
You're on mute, Nista.
I'd like to invite Sanchez, who has joined this webinar from France. Thank you very much for making it a priority and joining with all of us here. So please make your own opening remarks.
Thank you very much. And it's actually a true honor to be a part of this discussion with the Chamber of Commerce of Sri Lanka. So thank you very much for inviting me. I can only concur with the very profound remarks that have just been said. There is a human dimension that Dinesh has very well pointed out, in my opinion, because frankly, the magnitude of what we are living now, we did not see it coming. I can remember a very recognized analyst firm that was saying at the beginning, it was February this year, and it seems to be ages ago, that there will be 30% of people working from home by 2023. And a couple of weeks, if not days later, we found ourselves 90% of our workforce working from home. So the speed by which it has happened show an acceleration. And completely agree with also what Ashita just said, saying that this is accelerating and we are going even more digital, faster than it would have happened before this crisis. So with these two remarks, I think it's a great way to open this debate.
Thank you, Sanchez. I move on to Tanziza for your own perspective. I know you're going to bring some interesting insights to this issue.
Yeah, so again, thank you very much for having me on the panel. While, yes, it has made the entire world more digitalized, technology-driven, behind all of it is the human factor. And as long as your human factor finds purpose, finds reason, and finds a motivation, they will perform. And our role as leaders, as community leaders, as social people, is to create that and to help our teams, to find motivation, to find commitment, to find life purpose, and use that to keep themselves, performing, being productive, being contributing to the organization and ultimately to themselves. And that's where I will be starting off my conversation.
Thank you very much. Interesting opening remarks. I think everyone has sort of set the stage for hopefully a useful discussion on this. Dinesh, I'm moving back to you. I think it's easy to sort of react to this current pandemic from what we've done it. But do you think that all the HR divisions were ready for this in one way or another? I'm coming from HR perspective. You think, how do you see the progress from the original lockdown period till today? I think it's about 8 months of pandemic that the world has seen. Sri Lanka in particularly, we are going through a second wave. And also the fact that I think back in April, Sri Lanka was one of maybe the first South Asian country to launch work from home, both in the public sector and the private sector. So we had a head start, and your own perspective of how we have progressed as a country.
Right. So as mentioned during the opening remarks, I think Sri Lanka might be actually better compared to our region. But I think this is a shock to everybody. I think in my own opinion, and also because we work with a lot of HR HR heads of companies in Sri Lanka, we have seen that this is still evolving. I don't think there's still a way of working from home is still an experimenting. So working from home doesn't mean that you actually give them a laptop and you start working from home. There are so many other things that needs to be there. So that's what I mentioned. The new playbook for working from home is still evolving. It's not something that is still being written. I think it's still in the process of being written, and we are learning quite a lot of stuff. So to taking some couple of things, so we are very used to in the normal HR field policies and procedures. But I don't think any company in Sri Lanka would have had working from home policies or procedures. How do you do that? What are the things like, if you think about, okay, I think for me, the experience that we had even with our own teams, and people really didn't know what is working from home. So maybe during a curfew time, it's true. You are at your desk because things like that. But I think when curfew was open, we were still kind of part coming to office, part were working from home. That whole the discipline, the whole way of doing work are still getting evolved. So I think to answer your question, yes, I think we would have been better from a infrastructure wise. I think we were pretty much good. I think we had the whole infrastructure. We were able to cover, most of the weather it's from with the internet and all that compared to the region, I think. But was our HR ready for working from home and creating a culture of working from home? I don't think was there, and it's still evolving. I think we can go into some best practices that are being done, but I think it's still evolving as we speak, I would say.
Dinesh, I think in the initial stages, I think we still find it. There was this issue about how do you distinguish the working and unworking hours, and then also how do you manage the attendance. We're coming from a traditional HR role. You're talking about new playbook, but there have been a fair amount of 6 months, particularly in the pandemic period. 6 months can be a long time. Have you sort of overcome some of the initial problems and confusions and misconceptions about working from home?
Yeah, I think this was discussed in a couple of other things also. I think especially with working from home, you need to have what is called the job flexibility. Needs to be able to be flexible, because what we also as organizational leaders will also need to know that there are two types of, I would say, one is when you are working from home, when the rest of the people are not at home, your kids have gone to school, your spouse is at work. Is different when everybody is at home. So we as leaders also need to know, what is that job flexibility? How do you kind of do that? So part of that is, I think, keeping that whole momentum of work-based kind of driven more by output rather than by time. So I think if we need to kind of forget, that would be, because I can give you simple examples. We have kind of, I think we all have examples like this. A working mom, and she was telling me, she gets up a couple of hours early, does work maybe from 5:30 to 7:38, and then when her daughter gets up, does that work, and then does so that kind of flexibility is something that is needed to as heads of organizations that we need to look at. But again, I think the aspect that we are still talking about is work and work output. But I think the key thing is, I think we will discuss that the mental health of employees when you are working from home. I think that's a whole new area that I don't think people have been able to really grapple with that and being able to come up with. I think we talk about engagement, and I think we will go to some of those things in detail, but I think that's another area that we need to really think work output and your personal life. How do you kind of manage those two during working from home period like this?
Okay, fine. Excellent, Dinesh. I think I must follow up with the expert in the panel to talk about some of the issues that you talked about, managing the balancing the various responsibility. Tanzi, you'd like to come on and say what are the real psychological challenges in terms of, people at home. Dinesh referred to a particular scenario as well. What is the best way to manage, and what have you heard in terms of the initial phases of our work from home learning?
Okay, so let me start off by saying I started working from home in 2008 when the economic crisis hit, and we shut down the office here in Sri Lanka, and we were working off home, and I went through all those, initial stages, and my own kids were very young. So it was that challenge as well. And over the years, and also now working with many companies, what I've come to realize is this whole work from home is also a mindset. And what most people are grappling and struggling with is the mindset shift. Because whether we like to admit it or not, we've actually invaded their private space. And for them, work was their escape space. So now we brought both together and we put them together and said, now you have no private space. Now you have no escape workspace either. So now it's total mental shift that we as adults have to start making. I'm not talking about being employee or employer. I'm talking as an adult, because we can't expect our kids to make that mental shift. They're going to look at you as an adult, look at how you are making your mental shift, and then role model you, right? So this is what's important, that we have to change our own mindset. Because if you sit in front of any channel that talks about COVID, it's about the stress, the depression, the anxiety, the panic attacks, the overeating, the unwanted pregnancy, all kinds of things. But if you watch all of these channels the whole day, then you're just going to end up internalizing all of that. And that's what we become as well. So the shift that needs to happen is about what are we going to let into our mind? And that's our only escape. We can, like Dinesh very rightly said, we could set up, the new playbook for working from home. But until we make the mental shift, that cannot be completely implemented. Right? And this whole work from home is a mental shift we now need to make. And as organizations, leaders, we're going to have to help handhold our teams in order to make that shift as well.
Thank you, Tanziz. Excellent. I'll come back to you in terms of follow-up questions. Hasita, I'd like to bring you into the discussion. How is the software industry helping to make life easier, work life easier at home?
All right. Okay. Good. Very interesting points, Tanziz. Thanks a lot for that, and Dinesh before that. Okay. So this is the perspective. There is no working from home, right? Basically, what happens is wherever you are, where the work is, it happens there. I think people are not working from home in real, right? So the difference is there'll be certain people who do their desk job or whatever, they'll be working from home. There will also be these days a guy who is getting into a van and delivering keys or whatever you ordered. That person is working in front of my house when he delivers the stuff. And there is a person at the warehouse of keys who is doing work, and someone also working from home also in there. So the whole space has changed, like what was pointed out. So we need to get our mindset right. So wherever there is connectivity, work will happen. So that's the goodness of it. There won't be work which is done unnecessarily. We used to go to offices. Did we work all hours? I don't know, right? So I'm saying go to the drawing board and redefine this new situation we are in. That's the advantage digital gives. So since you asked me, what are these platforms, immaterial of what platform is, right? You got to figure out, we're trying to do a business. Let's focus on business. I mean, we talked about the personal life, whatnot. Either any business focus today would be to either make more money or save cost, right? Make more money in general, right? Now, who are your stakeholders? I think we can't be looking at this as employees. We're looking at internal processes. No. Understand your stakeholders. That's what I would do, recommend you to do. Forget about platforms, forget about technology. You have, everything is available. We try and kind of focus ourselves too much on tech, right? Tech is a given. Like Dinesh pointed out, we have a great infrastructure. The two large telcos and whatnot we have here has given us that platform. Technology is provided like companies like us, Google, and whatnot, and that's a given. So what we need to go and figure out is, who are our stakeholders? Whom are we trying to satisfy? Who are these digital people we are talking about? We have the digital natives, as we call, not Nishta, you and I, we don't qualify there. We are digital migrants. We also have digital natives who are sitting there, like pointed out by Tansisa. It's come to them naturally. They'll go and order food or whatnot. I mean, that's intuitive to them, right? So we are working with these consumer unit. What has happened to your consumers? Where are they, right? Is someone else serving them right now digitally? Those are the real questions to be asked around the boardroom. Not about how much we are going to spend on the tech. No, right? Of course, it's given that tech has to be there. It has to be secure, and it has to be of right quality. But more as an organization, how do we approach this? How do we get our organization to kind of get into this drawing board and figure out my customers, my suppliers, my employees, mainly, right? How are these people are going to interact together to bring larger value, whether we like it or not, right? Everyone says the economies are shrinking, and of course, there will be 20-30% taken out. Now, the question is, are you going to be on that 30% or are you going to be on the 70%? I don't think anyone here who logged in want to be on the 30%. So my recommendation is quickly get into the drawing boards, figure out what you're going to do with your customers, figure out how you're going to do. I think that's more important than, and the rest will follow. Yeah, is that sufficient?
Thank you. Excellent. You brought in an interesting facet of security. We have Alain to talk. I mean, there is always this fear of security breaches. People were just suddenly taking devices home or operating from devices from home, accessibility issues and all that. I mean, there have been lots of stories about how vulnerable security has been in this new norm. What is your own experience, Alan, in terms of how have they managed this challenge?
Well, we found that we had two allies with us to enable superior cybersecurity in these strange times. The first one is communication, because that helps to motivate and to reach the proper level of motivation that Tanzisa was mentioning earlier on, that is so critical when you have to rally people to the cybersecurity cause. And the cybersecurity officers, the good news is they have all the data to explain the reality of the risk to the employees in a very straight and regular and simple manner. So one of the things we've learned is when we were able to show the risk in simple terms, showing the attacks, then people were a lot more likely to accept, for instance, that there will be an extra step of authentication to connect to the company critical business application, that For instance, sometimes it would be a little longer because we have to install an extra layer of security for a little while. So that the first ally is transparent and regular communication to reach the level of motivation that both Dinesh and Tanziza brought up. The second one is education. And education is not necessarily turning everybody in cybersecurity engineers, but providing some basic notions of what cybersecurity is, what are the behaviors that everybody should adopt more naturally. And in order to do that, we have opened for free our education platform that we call Network Security Expert, and we have experiences, hundreds of thousands of people willing to go through these lessons and get recognition for this extra level of cybersecurity maturity that they just acquired. And we found that with education, when we educate someone, we win on many fronts. The first front, not the least, is that we are making our connected world a safer place. The second thing is we are giving this person a job for a lifetime. Because let me remind you that there are 4.5 million jobs opened with companies ready to pay and not finding the raw skills around the world. And the third thing that we do by educating people on cybersecurity is we made a very profitable win-win business for everyone in this ecosystem of cybersecurity. So communication and education are these two engines to make this connected world a safer place.
Thank you, Sanchez. Thank you for that. From your experience, what has been the breach? Any idea about what have been the common breaches or the frauds or the risk that people have found out in the early days of working from home and the companies have to deal with?
First, we have to realize the volume of this threat. In only a couple of years, it started before the pandemic, but it accelerated during the pandemic. We have witnessed 3 orders of magnitude. If I take one example, which is the number of records that have been stolen. We were talking several million, we have reached 6 billion. So 3 orders of magnitude. Very few defense mechanisms have been faced to such a growth in such a little amount of time. To answer more precisely to your question, because we were using some of the platforms we are using today to maintain business continuity and to maintain relationship with people, not all of us did implement in the first place all the options of authentication that you can find on these platforms. It's not that they are bad intrinsically, it's just that not all these functions were implemented. So we've seen a lot of people squeezing themselves into corporate calls because it was one generic link for everybody, and sometimes stealing identity, sometimes just taking notes or having information that was not public information. We've seen a lot of that. The second that is very common and that has increased is every sort of phishing. I cannot recommend more to really be careful when you receive an email, when there are a couple of factors that are on the same email. A sense of urgency, a source you don't recognize, and a link somewhere that is not a trusted domain. When you have these 3 conditions, never click, because the number of phishing attacks that have been successful since the pandemic have risen through the roof. But there are ways against that. For instance, you have mail systems that pre-detect the phishing before they are allowed into your mailbox. There is artificial intelligence that see a strange behavior for a certain profile of individuals, and that detects the gap between the baseline where you have to use your PC, for instance. It's like somebody stealing the keys of your car, right? He can perhaps start it the same way people can steal your credential and get in your network. But the way the car is driven, this is not like Daddy. He would never do that. And we have 40 parameters that we follow: numbers of applications opened, number of files, type of traffic, etc. And we detect these gaps. And that enables us to provide a protection against these breaches that have been created through vulnerabilities, technical vulnerabilities, and also human vulnerabilities since the beginning of the COVID.
Okay, thank you, Alain. Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome one of our panelists, Chaturi. Welcome, better late than never. Thanks, Chaturi. I think Sanchez spoke about people having started work from home long time ago. I know that AIA had started also much before the pandemic. What has been the key learnings for you in terms of, people have been very challenging at the start, but what have been the key learnings so that others also can sort of avoid those mistakes?
No, for sure. Thanks for welcoming me, and my apologies for the delay. I've just been listening though, and cannot emphasize the importance of data governance and data security. And in the same note, something very important to us as well. So if I'm just taking you through our experience, we started remote working since 2013. And when I say remote working, it is not the entire organization going on to remote mode, but where our sales takes place is where we were concentrating on the remote working. Can you hear me, Nista? Hello?
Yeah. Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, great. Yes, great. So what we did was first things first, we started making the investments where it mattered. So, and where we wanted to create differentiation. And obviously, we're selling insurance. It's not something that is, tangible. So the customer experience is what really mattered. And I'll just pick one example. So back in 2013, we saw a very clear business advantage in terms of getting the right quality we need, the speed we need, the efficiency we need, if we can enable sales process to go digital. When you say sales process, I mean, you would know that insurance is sold via insurance agents, and we presently have about 5,000 agents on ground. We would have had half of them, and they were used to a very traditional way of selling. So what we did was we actually brought in iPads, and we installed the iPOS system, which was the interactive, point of sale. And so we, got the tool right. We've had all the sales material they need, the advice material they need, the proposal forms, and everything they need we had. And we were definitely the first to market to come with it. But you asked me about the lesson. So the lesson most important for us is, just because you have this piece of technology and you've done a lot of investments and taken up upfront costs, it doesn't just magically work, because people are more comfortable at that time, definitely in 2013, in how you work, in the traditional way. So we put in a lot of effort, just the technology aspect of it, but more to the human aspect of it. For us, it was all about the mindset change, how it's not about how sales technology in the iPad, but more so, how do you get to an iPad? So we would give iPads free, we would include them in, reward schemes, easy payments, and most importantly, making people comfortable in using the device. And, we've adopted very simple ways like photo competitions, quizzes, videos, and a whole lot of branding. So the AIA agent comes with an iPad, there was a lot of branding. And then only we passed on the knowledge. When we got that penetration of people actually wanting to try that and got them out of their hesitation, only we started imparting the knowledge part of actually conducting a sales. And obviously business benefits were many, like, it's straight through, it turnaround times were great. We, came out with a better impression to our customers. But technology was a great impetus, but our biggest learning is how do you balance it with the human behavior, make them comfortable, and they can, then they really get onto it. But because we started this in 2013 and we had, our house in order, 80% of our businesses were conducted through this technology. We were able to probably, transfer our entire business to digital with the COVID a bit more faster. Within, a matter of 2 days, we were able to bring that. But that early investment definitely helped.
Okay. Thank you, Chatri, for that. I think, Dinesh, earlier on, you spoke about output issues. With more people going into work from home, there is some concerns about in terms of um, there is no control over the working hours. Then the management looks for certain outputs as well, right? Uh, I mean, what would be the best practice given these different aspirations from an employee side and an employee and an employer side? How has been the early learnings in terms of some of these concerns and complaints?
Right. So I think that's an interesting thing because, like one of the things that we had to realize is that when people are working from home, I think we discuss like getting people to work from home, but maybe they go into sales and other areas. But other things is that you are working from home, you are on front of a laptop, you are going to be on Zoom calls or Teams and stuff like that. But there are certain things that we have not thought through at the moment. What about confidentiality? What about privacy of for your own things? So which are very important because we can give you some examples. Say you may be working on certain things, you may be on a conference call, because most of the places we don't have a working from home area. But if you look at in other countries, you actually have a office room that you will work from home. Most of us are in our own bedrooms or in the living room or some place we are having these conference calls. So when you're having...
Okay, I'll try. Okay.
Dinesh, go ahead.
I think Dinesh has a technical issue.
Oh, is it? Dinesh?
Yeah, I think Dinesh has a technical issue at the moment.
If I may add something on the same...
Okay.
Dinesh, you're back. Yes, sorry. So what I was saying was in that, when you work from home, some of the challenges are when it comes to confidentiality, when it comes to certain areas of things that you may have had when you were working from a office. So those things are still we have not managed, or we have not been able to get. So some of the best practices that you need to put in place. That's why I mentioned at the beginning is that from working from home is we need to bring in certain policies and procedures that you need to kind of put in place so that working from home has a certain amount of ways and best practices that needs to be incorporated. So that's the output what you mentioned, and the kind of the what I would say the result oriented part. But then there's a whole area of human aspect. I think, we need to be very more human, more empathetic when people are working from home, especially during this time, right? I mean, during this time, we are all going through a certain amount of emotional challenges. And I think we need to have that human aspect is something that needs to be brought in and being able to build out of that, so maybe we can talk about that later, maybe in the second part. But on the output side, I think we need to have a certain policies and procedures in place.
Okay. From your understanding, Dinesh, you think people have, from your understanding, you think companies who have started, who are doing work from home quite professionally, have they sort of managed to resolve this issue about ensuring there is no overworking of certain staff when they are particularly, you tend to take it for granted, okay, you're at home, so you can work anytime, and in the process you might be sort of burdening them much more.
Correct. So I think that's where I think that it's very important. I think we all take our break times, and we all take, try to stick to that, because I think Nista, you're very much on it, right? I think when you're working from home, your boss can always think, you're at home, you're going to give a call, get onto a call or a conference call and stuff like that. So I think we are still getting used to it. I don't think we are, and we all our own ways are kind of a fault in these things, because we feel that now you can. But I think it's us. I think that's why I mentioned that human aspect, that whole thing about being more humanized in the way that we work has to come into place. I think we need to put ourselves back and say, okay, we will work, keep it out, and maybe have a 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, we turn it off, and then we don't till start it next day. So I think those things needs to come in, but I don't think it's, I can tell most of the CIOs that I'm talking with, some of the telcos, they are telling me they're having calls till like 8, 9, because earlier they used to travel and be on those time zones. Now you have to bring them into your time zones with their time zones, so your calls may go into late night, and that's something I think we need to kind of be more disciplined.
Okay, thank you. I know Tanziza is sort of waiting to say something, but I'll come back to you. Elaine, you were trying to sort of add to what Dinesh was saying.
Yes, I think it's also a great opportunity, this so-called social distancing, to start very healthy conversation across the companies as regards to perhaps not measuring people productivity by the time they spend in front of this PC, or formerly the time they spent in the office, but trying to find other ways to measure this productivity, which is those things we have to do, the benefits that together we want to bring to our customers. And that is going a little bit back to the drawing board as regards to people performance. But that conversation itself is very healthy, because by doing that, you show that you care about the integrity, the work balance, the performance measurement of the employees across the company. So taken this way, we find it an extra opportunity to enhance the relationship between people and their work, and clearly state that being home doesn't mean being always on. The computer could be always on, but the human brain needs rests and recognition and emotion and breaks. And that, including that into the conversation, in my opinion, is using this very strange and sometimes terrible times that we've been through, and that will not end very soon, into an opportunity to change the relationship between people and productivity.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Alan. Very useful insights. Tanzila, just I'm sure you will bring your own thinking into this. Just this thing about while working at home, there are distractions as well. Then there is this allegation or concern about being overworked. I mean, and also the challenge, the pressure of having to, come to terms with your own productivity or certain demands on the job in terms of output. So what would be your kind of perspective in terms of various issues that are faced while working at home?
Okay, so one of our biggest challenges that leaders of organizations have is, what are these distractions and how does it affect productivity of an employee? Now, Hasita, when he spoke earlier, had made a really good comment when he said, when we go to work, do we really work all the time? Right? So there's that colleague who passes by who cracks a joke, or somebody who just got married comes into office and you all got to bug him, or your boss wants to see you for a few minutes, or there's this report that suddenly became important. So what the difference is that our type of distraction just changed, right? It still, so it's just to bring our mindset to say, okay, we're never 100% occupied, productive even at work. It's just that now at home, our distractions just have changed, right? And how do we adapt to those distractions? Right? As parents, I mean, it's something that always clicks is this advertisement. I don't know how many of you have seen, but I can't remember the brand, but where this father is working off home and the daughter wants to come and play. And he says, I'm busy. And then the daughter adopts that same, mindset. So it's about, so when your colleague passes by and he just says, hi, how are you? What have you been up to on the weekend? We do respond. That's a distraction. Same here, your kid wants just 5 minutes of your time. It's the same distraction. So how do we balance these two? And it's important that your kids don't feel that, again, another advertisement that really catches my mind is this architect who's designing a house. And this kid, Alan, I'm sorry, it's a Sri Lankan ad, but this kid wants to talk to the dad, and the dad says busy, and and the kid says, I hope in the house you are designing, there isn't a room like this. So we just have to start, changing our mindset to say, okay, these distractions are there. And that's also your motivation to be productive. When my 12-year-old comes to me, and for no reasons, not that she wants anything, but she'll come and, I'm here to bug you. Right? And she'll be around you for 3-4 minutes, and then she's gone. But all she was saying was, I know you're working, but I also need a little attention. Now, it's the same distraction your boss was, coming to my room, I want to talk to you for a few minutes. That was the same thing that your kid just did. I came into your room, I want to talk to you for a few minutes. So it's a mindset. We need to start changing, knowing that nowhere were we 100% productive. And that also goes to our leaders. If you want to keep your team engaged, your team motivated, I'm sure all of us have our weekly meeting, set expectations together. I don't care whether you work in the morning, like Dinesh said, there's this mom who's to get up at 5:30 and work till 7:30. Okay. But here are the expectations that the organization has of you. Can we discuss and see how to deliver? Okay. So now leaders and non-managers, and not just leaders and managers, you are coaches supporting your team, being available for your team in order that they can perform. The pure idea of servant leadership comes to light at this point.
Thank you, Tanzila. Thank you very much. Hasita, I like to before I'll finish with Hasita because we're just talking about it, about these challenges in terms of how technology is helping to manage all these. Everyone spoke about, Hasita. I mean, end of the day, basically, it's up to the human who is at home to manage it, as well as the boss who is also human to be more humane to understand the new dynamics of this situation. In this whole human factor, how is technology helping to balance all these issues?
Okay. Yeah. So a lot of interesting points were raised here. So fundamentally, I don't think anyone gets out of the bed saying, "Let me do a shitty job today," right? It doesn't happen, right? So if you try to start over monitoring, that is what we usually do, because now we are trying to transition from old to new, or whatever you want to call it. It becomes an issue. Technology in a way helps in different ways, right? So start of it, like I said, you can operate from different places. So now technology can enable you to work while you are exercising or you are in the gym, right? That's possible because these are the breaks Stanzies and a lot of the other people were talking about. You need these breaks, you need these interactions. Whilst it is highly recommended, like Dinesh pointed out, that you make your own space, right? Whatever, however it is, because we are not used to that concept of having a home office, it helps, right? What also helps is, so technology helps you to operate from anywhere in a very comfortable way, on a high quality way, right? So that's what technology bring in. Also the security. Look at also the calendaring, right? If you are never we had used calendars like this before, no one gets up and look at how you're filling your calendar before, never, right? In Microsoft, I mean, we are so used to running a calendar because we're connecting from all over the world, but we are not used to this tightly. Today, you look at the calendar, meeting after the other, meeting after the other. So technology, if it's helping, you should put your breaks. Say, this is my break time. This is my lunch time. This is my time. I'm going to have a nap, and be open about it. One, I think that's so important. And you are clocking in, checking out at right times. Now you pointed out, about the telco, you're hearing from. It's absolutely not productive. I don't think it's going to be so. Working hours turn into making impact. Talk about impact with the people, right? People understand the impact of it, right? Kind of give that benefit of doubt to say, okay. But having said that, there are technology tools. I mean, if I'm to talk about my own platform, there are tools called work analytics, right? You can analyze my work. My analytics help you to analyze how you're spending your time. So important. How much time I'm spending on email, how much time I'm spending on browsing, how much time that is quite helpful. Now you can also allow your manager to have a look at it, right? Not that manager is going to come into your life and start monitoring you. This is more trying to figure out how you're spending time, right? And to the extent that the manager say, hey, how many hours have you spent on this? So these analytics, AI really help from the technology side. On the other side, from an HR perspective, you can look at workplace analytics, as we call them, right? That's the product. You understand what is happening around the workplace, your workplace. Is it a healthy place? How can you benchmark your workplace versus someone else? I think these are really technology, how it can help. Having said that, let's not forget about the human aspect of it. I think every Friday you sign, bring your own BYOD, as in bring your, not device, bring your own drink. Having that, and on the Monday morning, I usually do this every Monday. Have a session, you checking in, right? Now, usually when we go to office on Monday morning, we don't say checking in because you have checked in. You say, hello, hi, what happened? Where is the dog? What happened to all that is done. We don't do that here. So a specific checking in time in the mornings or in the evenings would really help. Just make it free. So those are the either tools as well as the approaches one could take, and technology only can help. Really, technology can help because you are now logging in from wherever you are, most comfortable place. It could be your dining table. And the other thing is, we have this huge issue with the culture of not being open, right? You're shy to say that, I mean, you are having dinner, joining this call. right? I think people have to get out of those things, right? We can't be competing in the world, and we can't be teaching our children to be authentic if we still getting used to the old way of doing things, getting this brick and mortar world to the digital. In digital, you be open, you be authentic, you bring your best self, then you're good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I add just one thing into that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when Hasita was talking about checking in, something that we used to do when we do check in was, first of all, we share something positive that's gone right for you in the last week. So it could be a simple thing like if you had, rambutan, that was, something special. Or if you got to get your garden in order, it was a positive thing. It didn't have to be some huge thing, but just a little thing that shifts our mindset from, all the things that we hear to, wow, there's lots of positive things that are still going on in the world. Yeah.
Yes, very true. I think that's a very true statement, that to take the time to reflect on things that have gone right in a world that always comes to you with the things that have gone wrong. So that balances a little bit the pressure in many ways.
Good. I think Kanishka is in the panel right now. Kanishka, are you there? Kanishka? Kanishka, can you come? Okay, I don't see him. Chaturi, can I move on to you?
Sure.
Chaturi, yeah. Okay, I just want to, I mean, there's a lot of talk about working, the challenges and the interesting challenges of working from home. Just want to ask you how women manage this whole, generally the Tanzis was talking about an exit place and a family place, and then now it's all at home. How have women, what has been your experience of women managing being a worker plus the mother at home, which is a new thing for most of the women who have been asked to work from home now?
Sure. Right. I mean, women, I mean, we would look at on all the employees, like men or women.
Yes.
And we did, we did a number of surveys while we were also getting people to work from home. And I completely resonate with the other speakers, who were telling about the emotional engagement part. And we felt that was more so important to our women employees than sometimes the men employees. I'm completely going by the surveys and the data we ran. They loved the flexibility of being able to be at home. And in addition, they also loved the fact that they don't have to commute to work. They had connectivity, and office gave all those facilities. But what was found to be really, really overwhelming was that, they were drained at the men. I mean, I'm just speaking of the data that we saw. It's just meeting after meeting after meeting. It was just draining. And that aspect we really needed to look at. So when we finished the first wave of COVID and people were actually able to come to work, the ask from the women employees was not to go into this complete work from home model, but more so move to a mixed model. What does a mixed model mean? Mixed model means they do have the freedom to come late if they want to. What does that mean? They've probably finished the Zoom lessons of their kids, and then they would come in to check in. The meeting their colleagues was very important, as well as being updated and spending that me time in office was also important. In terms of, if you look at the sales force, we really made good strides. I mean, at a time where people were losing jobs, we were able to recruit from March onwards about 1,000 odd agents, and a good 1/4 of them were women. And the only reason that it happened is we were able to give them the relevant technology. They could completely, work from home. and complete the sales process remotely. So that really helped. They like the flexibility of it. So they they prefer this mixed model where they could come into work. Their hours are not 8 to 5 anymore, but they had the flexibility which needed from home. And even today, I mean, just before the last COVID closure, you would have very minimum staff, especially our ladies, because they would prefer to completely work from home. And that, so we also, in terms of our employee policies, first we were thinking, okay, we want this policy which caters to working from home. And now we are on the next evolution of it, where we allow you make your own work arrangement, your own work timing, so long as you finish the work. And one other aspect that came up very importantly from women as well as our men employees in these surveys, the score that they gave as to what they need. Somebody cares for me as a person. Somebody at work, either manager or somebody at work, cares for me as a person. And that's something they really wanted more in this present situation, which means no matter what processes they have, they do want that individuality where their manager checks in, real time, checks out, keeps just the positivity going with them. And that was important. Those were some of the, learnings from us.
Okay. Thank you very much. You brought this certain aspect of, I want the panel to answer this question, actually not one particular person. With working from home, what will happen to all this team building culture, the teamwork that was very synonymous in an office setting? I mean, how will that happen in the next new norm? Or have companies sort of found a way to build that teamwork and the comradeship in an organization? Anyone like to?
I would just suggest that we have to reinvent part of these team buildings on the ground, that being together means sharing something. But if we look at, for instance, some of the social networking activities that had started before the pandemic, they were the creation of communities and teams that were sharing ideas and projects together. So that would be my first part of the answer. The second thing is, it's not going to stop immediately, this social distancing, but it will eventually come to an end on a different ways with different habits. But it's not a 0 of 1. We are starting to mitigate and to gradually merge towards a world of communication where virtual communities and real communities will coexist together, and probably for the good. I think that there are lots of good lessons to be taken, not only from what has just been said in this very interesting panel, but also to the entire ecosystem of communication that has dramatically changed in the last 6 to 7 months.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else in the panel who would?
Let me add something. So what happens is, what we've realized is, when you don't have it, you value it, right? That's the first thing. I mean, you took these things all for granted. And today you're looking at it and you're missing it. And you know that this has a massive impact on your motivation, your team building, right? So firstly, we now appreciate it, right? This has to, we need to embrace this. There is an HR, you need to make an effort. That's the first thing. Second is, I mean, we are going to a hybrid world, right? Hybrid workplace. So there will always be, like, pointed out by Elliot, there will always be sessions. You need to figure out how to do that. And it's an important aspect of it. In terms of bringing on new people, this is where the biggest challenge is, right? If you are in a formed team, the team knows the values of the team, then it's very easy for you to go virtual. And when you are doing it, so imagine if you don't see any one of us, this would be a very uncomfortable discussion, right? So the video makes a huge difference. The body language makes a huge difference. That again, if you are, so we need to watch people when they're coming new to the team, right? How do they get into this whole culture and understanding that this is the norms of this team, this is the culture of the team. So HR as well as the leaders as well as the rest of the team has to kind of embrace and kind of take those new people. I think that's a key aspect, you know, when we bring people and when exit people, because that will have frictions in the team. That will be a comfortable, that's the biggest challenge I see, not teams moving. So it's advisable to use video wherever it's possible, and also when you can meet, you meet because you value it now. Yeah.
Right, so let me add two simple concepts. One is what we're doing with a client already, is where they've created like an intranet, so that people begin to share. And when Chatri was talking about ladies, this was something that came to my mind, where when you are working, you can't have the 6 curries and rice anymore. You've got to figure out an easier way to do this. So actually in this company, they've started sharing recipes, saying how they manage the, you know, online school and the work, and, you know, how they take their breaks, what are they doing to be a create more creativity within the family, how their garden is growing. So they actually created a community within the organization, and everybody's helping everybody out. And it's actually when they finished when we went back to work after the first wave, there were actually people sharing vegetables and chilies and stuff like that, because they'd started this and it had, you know, become a real community. So we will have to be very creative how we keep teams motivated and teams working together. And the second point is, it's when you know, again, like Hasita said, you know, video is extremely important to connect, because that gives you more of your, you know, the message than you would only give when you're just talking words. So it's important that we continue to do, you know, virtual team building activities. We get them into breakup rooms, we get them into inductions, so that even somebody who's coming in does kind of get to know who the team is and how we work. And the final one is that it's very important that we become value-driven organizations, because our values will bind us at teams. So HR has a huge job to do in order to keep that, you know, team going.
So let me add a little bit also, you know, so the whole employee engagement is, I think, what you're talking about, and how do you engage the employees. So one the things that are, you know, some of these Zoom meetings or Zoom parties and stuff like that, you know, some of the experience that we have seen is that depending on your age level of your organization, maybe the young guys are more interested in getting into Zoom parties, whereas the more mature, the elder people may not be. So I think you need to be able to design, HR needs to be able to design programs that you can actually engage different age limits, different ages of your organization, and then build an engagement program. The other thing that is, I think, you know, this is happened to, you know, during one of our senior managers meeting today, that we realized one of the best things that are going on normally, like I mentioned, you know, you have a morning meeting to kind of see, okay, how is the work, and you're more talking about the work. Some of the project leaders have actually started maybe in the evening, just have a coffee session, you know, just have a call and say, okay, let's get together and have a coffee and talk about nothing to do with work, but what's going on. I think these are informal gatherings, informal meetings actually helps to keep that culture of an organization, keep the motivation. And I think we are still, I think, like I said very beginning, we are still evolving to kind of figure out what's the best practices in this. I think in time to come, we will get into that. But I think, you know, you need to design different purposes of engagement. So engagement is all about, what's your purpose and what is the community that you actually build within your own organization. So I think there's a lot that will be happening, but I think there are some learnings out of this is, creating these informal gatherings that actually help people to keep that, emotional bonding between the teams.
Excellent. Thank you. Valuable inputs. I'd like to welcome Kanishka finally. Thank you very much, Kanishka, for making it. We missed a more important perspective from you in terms of how are the employers managing this whole new situation, and also the famous question about the status of the legal framework to manage regulate employers and employees working online from home. Can you share some perspectives of how has been the learning in terms of some of these challenges, legal as well as other HR challenges? Kanishka?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes, fine.
Right. I think at the beginning, it was a challenge for all employers when this issue came up in February, March, and some of them were not prepared. Those who had the opportunity of preparing, I don't think anyone envisaged this situation, but those who had the opportunity of preparing for such eventualities were also prepared, I must say. So we had a number of good examples, for example, from working from home or distant locations. But if I am to assess that situation, it was a total shock to the employers when this whole issue came up and the lockdown started taking place. But thereafter, employers have progressed because all of us know that we will have to live with this situation for some time, and reality came I think reality dawned on us that we have to find solutions quickly and also have sustained solutions available for employers so that they could get on with their business despite the difficulties faced. I think I think our employers have shown a lot of resilience. I must actually give them the kudos for that. Despite the difficulties, they have done hell of a lot to retain employees. I think I said this on record previously also, Nista. I have not seen this type of sentiment. I mean, I'm sure you would have also not witnessed this type of sentiment anywhere in the region, and maybe very few parts in the world where employers are so committed to retain employees. And this was gauged not only, I'm not just saying it, we have information and we shared it with you also. The initial assessment that we did a survey. The Commissioner General himself did a survey, and it was found that employers were giving their priority to retain employees. So that was a huge boost for us. So we also worked on those lines to assist employers despite the difficulties faced. And as a result, now today, although predictions were made that we might have 19-20% unemployment, officially they say it's about 5.7% or 5.4% now. Of course, unofficially it might be slightly higher, but it's nowhere near the unemployment figures that we envisaged or other countries face. So I think that shows the commitment of employers in this country, irrespective of whether you're a large scale player or even SME. All were willing to or trying their best to retain employees. I think we have a fairly mature culture in that sense. But things are very tough, Nista, now. I mean, this is the second instance that we are facing a similar situation. Companies will be stretched in terms of their finances and other resources. But as far as the ability to face this situation as from managing employees' point of view, I think our companies and employers have learned very fast. And I think they have applied numerous solutions, durable solutions. I would use the term sustainable solutions to to try and overcome whatever difficulties. I think we have been very fast in doing this, and I give credit to the employers because we have had 30 years of conflict, and we went through that phase, and then we had some economic problems also during the last few years, and now this. But in spite of all that, there has been a huge amount of resilience. If I'm to answer your specific query about legal frameworks, well, I think we are building a base. I think we are learning from various practices. We are building a base, and I think it's up to us to now get together with the other stakeholders, the government and those who represent employees, to have some of these systems in place by in terms of law, and also, as you know, Nistan, everything cannot be covered by law. You have to have certain standards for, because how people deploy personnel, human resources differ. Because, for example, manufacturing, you can't have work from home. So that's not possible. And I'm happy that the government this time around realized the importance of keeping economic activity going, and they have they have made a huge effort to keep the economic activities going, and by keeping the zones open, giving curfew passes. Now, even yesterday, they had a major relaxation of issuing curfew passes. So that's good, because this situation is good, and we have to support the government and the health authorities in maintaining the health the concerns of the country, and ensure that the COVID spread is minimized. I think the government and the authorities should be again given a lot of kudos for that. So yes, in doing that, we also have to continue with our work. Shall I stop at that, or do you want me to explain a bit more?
Kanishka, just on the usual, I know excellent, that a lot of progress. I think there's commitment to retain employees and do much as possible. But the grim reality is that the earnings have come down, the business opportunities have sort of drastically reduced. You have been looking at remuneration. You have been revisiting remuneration in the backdrop of people working from home. That is one. How are you? What's the progress on that? Plus, what about disputes between employers and employees due to remote working? How are the employers managing these two issues? Because you mentioned about financial resources being stretched. In the next few months, it's not going to improve dramatically. In that situation, one is maintaining the employees. There have been some pay cuts implemented from March onwards, June onwards. So the remuneration factor, now that people are at home, working from home, and also the various issues about disputes that can arise when you're working from home.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Nisa, because that's one of the most important aspects. Because that's why we have always advised employers that you need to strike a balance. You need to understand the requirements of your employees as opposed to the organization sustaining itself. Of course, in doing that, it'll be impossible for any organization, even if you have the most amount of resources, to keep keep operating the same manner, and even rewards and remuneration to give to keep up to the same standards. I don't think that's possible, because we need to, as employers, we will have to look at reducing costs, because as we operate, we don't, and some of them are operating without any income. So the reality is that they have to cut down on expenditure, and obviously employee costs are one area that they will look at, because on one hand, you can't expect the employers to retain employees as well as keep the same type of rewards going. And I think on the other side, I would say all of us, any employee will have to understand that if an employee is struggling, it's up to all of us to understand how we can make commitments and compromises, because we have job security on one hand, and the other is that the organization also has to go on. So we have to strike a balance. As far as disputes are concerned, there have been disputes, but I must say the disputes have been mostly settled at the enterprise level. And as I understand, not many, I mean, not in the scale that we expected, have reached the labor department. So the disputes that have reached the labor department are less compared to what we expected. I'll put it that way. But I don't have a crystal ball, Nisla. I really don't know what's going to happen in the future and things like that. But so far, employers appear to be managing their matters at the enterprise level. I think, again, it reflects, unlike in other countries, the mature relationships that we have, or the mechanisms that we have to manage employees and their grievances at our workplaces. That's a huge strength for the country, actually. So
Okay,
so far, yeah.
What were the what were the common grievances that you have found in the last few months? What were the real most common?
Well, the most common grievances were, well, about the reduction of remuneration, because obviously employees have commitments. I mean, they have children who go to school, and many of them are some don't have the luxury of sending them to a conventional school where the fees are less. So
Yeah.
those are realities. I mean, you have various commitments, and when you have a sudden reduction in remuneration, I don't think the school's fees have reduced. So those
Right.
are some of the things that we have to take into account.
Any grievances with regard to working from home? Any complaints on that? I mean, have you heard that?
Actually, it's the other way around. I think employees are happy to work from home.
Okay.
But one area that we had to address very early was to have some standard with regard to work-life balance. Because when you say we are working from home, it doesn't mean that the employee has to work or should be expected to work from 6 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the morning, say dawn to dusk. You have to have work-life balance. I mean, that's one thing that we encourage employers to do, to set the times and also to set the recess times. And if since they are at home, there will be certain chores and things that they will have to attend to, and also to set times for those. And what we said was, look, try to because most of the time what we encourage them to do was, I mean, this is not hourly type of work, as you know, Nista. It can be easily converted into tasks. So to try and give to be more task oriented, I think that system is coming into being. And with most of the workers who can work from home being knowledge workers, and they are highly educated, and their IT skills are much more higher than anyone else, I think that's also another advantage. And I see going forward, Nista, very little supervision of work taking place, whereas the completion of the task might be the main assessment and things like that. So there are even our KPIs, the general KPIs will have to differ. Obviously we will have to revise our organizational KPIs, because as you quite rightly mentioned, I mean, all over the world the economic activity is going down, or I mean the financial organization, the World Bank, all of, and so we will have to actually pause and think as to how we manage our businesses and our employees in this short term. I mean, what we gauge as a short term, and now short term is becoming a bit mid to long term. So I mean, that's reality. But there are certain businesses that are picked up and they are booming. Take for instance the online businesses that take place, the deliveries and things like that. The online platforms, I understand that there are lots of people doing their own creations or their own businesses online, and that's a huge plus. And the way we now, even this meeting is being held online, and the school children are schooling online, universities exams, everything is taking place online. I think we need to, if you are to ask me what solutions I am thinking, I think we need to invest a bit more on the technology side, right? Unfortunately it can't be done for the manufacturing, but manufacturing I see in future. And I in fact I took up this issue with the director of the ILO and my former boss and colleague now from the ILO, Ravi Piris, where we thought that maybe we should also assist the government. One of the biggest issues that we are facing is on the health side, the spread of the virus in lodgings and common lodgings and hostels of workers. And many of them, I mean, companies maintain beautiful lodgings, and they stay in common lodgings. So irrespective of whatever you do, you maintain 100% sanitization at your workplace. If the employees are not coming from locations where there is proper sanitation, you could again contaminate. So what we are thinking is maybe we should also support the government and the authorities by having bubbles. You see, maybe pay more attention to those lodging places, irrespective of whether it's a common lodging or whatever. We go out there and try to work with the authorities and create healthy lodging places, right? Healthy and safe lodging places, so that when workers come to work, I'm just giving one example, you create a bubble, right? And the public transport is another, Nista. Now, if companies are giving transport, I'm sure they are sanitizing the buses, everything, but you can't have that for all workplaces. People will have to use public transport, and I don't think we can rely on the government to do that alone. So we might have to actually think of ways and means of supporting that effort by making certain commitments, even in relation to sanitizing public transport, so that there are safe bubbles for people to commute, because this thing is going to be there for some time. Thank you, Nista.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. We're just going into our last session of the questions. I just want to, there was one facet that was mentioned earlier on about governance, about confidentiality when you're working from home. I'd like Alain to come into this, and as well as Hasita to bring some perspectives as to how governance issues are looked at. How do you ensure confidentiality? Because it's new to a lot of people. And what safeguards would you recommend in terms of ensuring these things, as well as some element of discipline while being at work online from home?
Yes, it's a very important question, Nistar, and I think there is no one single answer or a panacea to that, but a holistic approach of confidentiality and privacy, and obviously security of the data. We found that there are a couple of pillars that are really necessary to put in place from a network and security perspective. But as we said also earlier on this debate, from an education and communication perspective. The first, and these two last components are very important to ensure what we can call segmentation of the access of the data. We were, with the COVID, many companies have asked us to help them to do a next layer of segmentation within the company. In other words, it's not one credential, username and password, gets access to the entire company data, but it's more thinking about what are the information flow that are necessary to conduct the business in a profitable manner and to help people doing their work. And starting to do that, starting to think of this segmentation also is a great moment of communication within a corporation, and particularly as people are working from home, because it enables everybody to ask the right question. What kind of information is really necessary for me to do my job properly? And that varies from a company to another. In some companies, you may decide, for instance, just for the sake of the argument, that someone from marketing has no need to have access to the human resources database, for instance. In some others company, you may decide that, on the contrary, an access to the human resource database for an advanced marketing analytics project might be granted at a certain period of time. So that first level of considering what are the information flow that are necessary, what is the application prioritization that is necessary to keep the company going on, because not all the applications that someone can access remotely from his PC have the same importance to build up the value proposition for the company. So considering all that enables a prioritization, and that leads to a higher performance overall of the company and a higher security at the same time. One of the things that we do advise is to never consider separately the network agenda, which is anything related to the connectivity of the devices, the applications, the data centers, and the security. This has to be merged into one new discipline that is called security-driven networking. In other words, you don't architect the authorizations of accessing to the data independently from the security issues that are related to them. And I will end up this question with also the legal requirements that we all have, because these new situations and social distancing, remote working, COVID is part of the equations. These new situations create new vulnerabilities, and the legislative bodies, the governments, for the greater good, are issuing new rules and regulations. For instance, the protections of personal data is one of these, but there are so many others related to the very nature of the information, related to the location where they should sit, relating to the duration of these authorizations. And all that is one of the pillars of a superior ability to adapt to this new era, and at the same time protect the information regarding to the actual use they have for an individual, for a work group, for a country, for a segment of the working force. And that is something that technology can help on. Let me end up with one thing, which is artificial intelligence. It's been lots of been said about artificial intelligence, from it's going to be a war between humans and robots, it's going to kill jobs, which is more a science fiction movie than a reality. Today, artificial intelligence is already in use in cybersecurity to second the human brain, to avoid, for instance, a level of stress of people that need to go and correlate alarms from various systems in a very stressed manner. Artificial intelligence can learn what normal is, and that's different from a company to another, create a baseline behavioral and see the gap, and kind of alleviate people in charge of securing the infrastructure from the natural stress due to this mission. So this is the holistic approach that is necessary to cope with the requirements you just mentioned about the security of the data, the privacy, and the governance in a holistic manner.
Thank you. Let me take a minute. Thanks, Nista. You think there is still time for us to address?
Yes. I want the panel
to
connect.
Okay, thanks. A very important question. See, firstly, privacy and security are things which we discussed much before COVID. And if you look at it, these are the biggest barriers for digitalization of an economy, social, right? So wherever there is protection in terms of security, privacy, particularly IP, right? Like I started off, let's take this whole thing back to all stakeholders which are concerned. We need to talk about privacy, security, and the protection of IP for employees, the employers, the organizations, as well as the other stakeholders, your suppliers, your customers to start with, right? So in a digital world, what happens is a lot of these people are sharing your private information. And if you are working, for example, a tourist agency or or a tour operator in Sri Lanka would receive information from alien when he wants to eventually travel to Sri Lanka, right? And that information becomes private information. And if you don't know the GDPR rules, right, which is governing, the Europe, right, and then fast becoming general protection rules worldwide, then you can't operate because you are under massive threat of being basically fined if something goes wrong. So when you look at security privacy, look at it from all aspects, look at all stakeholders. This is not just an employee thing. The good thing is technology helps here, like Alien pointed out. Now technology is built ground up. No one is thinking of security as a secondary thought. It's not a thought after. Tech is built today with AI security inbuilt to help us, right? All these compliance to help us. If you are in right tech, right? In general, that's the norm. So again, what I'm saying is let's not get deviated from we need to say secure IP. We need to look at all stakeholders. There are platforms who can deliver that. There is a big knowledge gap. And I think we need to learn more and embrace more. If you want to be in this digital world and thrive in this is really an important aspect for us to understand what are our stakes and what, particularly, I mean, if you are penetrated today, I mean, it happened to many organizations, right? It's not about money, it's about reputation. It's eventually about reputation of the country so that the industries can get wiped out. If you don't safeguard your industry, industries can get wiped out because your reputation becomes, hey, this place is a vulnerable place. We can't trust our IP with this particular manufacturer or the group of manufacturers. Becomes a big problem. So technology, when we are on this path, we need to look at this to enable digital world, enable digital business. This is a must-have. Technology can enable it. We need to get ourselves more aware of it and learn and take this serious. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else in the panel who wants to make a quick remark on the governance and the confidentiality, security aspects?
I'd like to add, Nista, on the importance of training, education, and making the staff aware, staff awareness in relation to data governance, data security, and privacy, and also very importantly, how do they identify red alerts? You can inadvertently click on a link and you can compromise your entire network. And these are very, very schemingly crafted in a way, and that employee would fall into it. So it's very important that organizations pay important aspect to it and really invest on the level of training and development into your curriculum, which kind of constantly give that awareness to your people, so that not just sharing data, but they can really identify the red alerts that come with it. Especially working from home, working remotely, we're not in a compromised situation.
Nista, just one quick intervention there.
Yeah.
I think we all must actually lobby for and ask the government to implement the Information Security Act, which is in draft form, because that will pave the way for a lot of things. Because otherwise, each and every employer or any organization giving work outside to an employee will be stuck with added onus of having addendums with regard to privacy, confidentiality, and things like that. You will anyway have to have some measure of clauses. But if the Information Security Act was in place, I think it can solve a lot of issues. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, very good.
Yeah. Okay. Just last 10 minutes for the panel, actually. So I'm going to be a bit selective in whom I'm trying to invite to sort of perhaps. I want everyone, if possible, starting from Tanziza, to say what would be the best way forward for companies and employees in this new norm, assuming there is more, as someone said, that there'll be a hybrid work model that will come in the future, which is that's something to stay. What would be the best practice from both for employers as well as employees in this emerging future?
So for me, two of the best practices I would recommend. One is, see, when all of you who've had kids would know that your pediatrician tells you when the infant is born that we are creatures of habit. So create a process for yourself that helps you, plan and deliver results. So you have to create your own processes. Of course, you have to work with your superiors or, your team in order to ensure that you get, your expectations from the organization are met. But you still have to create your own process for the day. And the second one is whether you look at the pandemic or whether you look at life in general, we are very mindless human doings. Right? And I say this because, okay, let's look at wave one finished. For a few weeks, we were still very mindful of wearing our mask, washing our hands, and all of that. A few weeks later, maybe a month later, you found that when you went to the ATM, the sanitizer bottles were empty. People stopped carrying their own sanitizer. The mask, which was supposed to cover your nose and your mouth, ended up in your chin. So from being mindful, we suddenly became mindless human doings. So we fell back into our old way of doing. The world is never going back to our old way of doing things. So maybe Lord Buddha had a lot more insight than you and I did, because he taught us mindfulness. It's not just Lord Buddha, but if you look at every religious, leader, they've taught us mindfulness in prayer, in how we treat each other. So it's never going back to being mindless human doings. We need to, as organizations, the reason Google has this entire program, Search Inside Yourself, which is based on mindfulness, whether it's SAP, whether it's, Apple, everybody's practicing. The reason is that we cannot be mindless anymore, because we wouldn't have a planet for our future generations. So organizations, employees, employers have to live and work mindfully and with the realization that we're human beings and not human doings. So create, so that's my way forward, and that would be the best practices to adapt.
Excellent, Tanzila, excellent. Dinesh, what would be your quick suggestion?
So I think the important thing is, as organizations, I think HR has a huge role to play. I think when it comes to working from home, and I think HR needs to be agile. HR needs to be able to bring these new practices. HR for me, HR is actually the pulse of the organization, keeping the senior managers, the CEO, and others informed of what's going on. So I think it's the line managers have a big role to play, because they are the ones who are kind of the front facing with the most of the employees, and then the HR. So my advice is for HR to be very, very agile, be very empathetic. I think this is the time that empathy becomes part of our soul going forward, because these are tough times for everybody. We need to be, I think Kanishka mentioned, I think I'm very glad to hear that companies have used as the last resort to kind of let people go. This is not the time to let people go. Yes, we may take salary cuts, we may do whatever that is needed, but because this is a tough job market going forward, I think will be for many, many months, even maybe even years. So we need to be very empathetic, we need to be agile, we need to be listening to our employees, work with them, and be a sounding board. I like mentioned, I think if you can give a call, I think it was on one of the panelists said, talk with not your direct subordinates, talk with maybe 1 or 2 levels down. Listening to them, talking to them makes a huge thing. So as HR professionals, as leaders of these companies, I think we need to adapt this and make it a habit. because I think forming habits in this time will in these areas will really help us to go forward. So my advice is, get HR more involved, come up with new strategies, new areas of working from home, look at what is working and amplify it, and things that are not working, let's put it aside. Thank you.
Rest of the panel, anyone wants to sort of suggest the way forward? A quick recap.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll finish. Right. Yeah. Thanks again, all of you for joining. A lot of those comment. Tansis, I am really upset that you didn't mention Microsoft. You mentioned everyone else. That's okay. Right. Okay. So
I am so sorry, Hasita. Yes, Microsoft Teams is what I generally use. So yes, yes, we do.
But if you think about it, if you really think about it, Atisha, I think Tanziza did mention Microsoft when she talked about healthy interruption. You were the software company that introduced multitask software, which is the smart way of dealing with interruption in the world of productivity. So I think maybe the name was not mentioned, but the concept that you've brought to the world of productivity were everywhere.
I inspire sellers. Thank you. Thank you. So this is how I look at it. This is forget about, who we are, right? We are all leaders here, and I think that's a role to play. See, this is an opportunity. However painful it is, as a nation, I think we should be able to, in 2020, 2040 or whatever, or 2030, we look back and say, there was a massive opportunity, right? These are opportunities which nations were built on. Look at the World War II. Look at, how many nations were built around that? Be it Japan, be it Israel, US, whatnot, right? World War I. We are in a war which is not defined by a very different definition of it. So we have two options. One is to kind of take pain, go around, figure out what to do, or embrace this new world. Look at this as a challenge. We have done well as a nation. We have a big, good human resources. We can cater to the world, because working from anywhere, meaning now you can work for a US company from home, right? That's a massive opportunity. It's a matter of how we try and understand this opportunity and give leadership to our people, and take this as a big positive opportunity for us as well as for our kids. And we will be failing our duty if we don't do that now. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, and all the very best.
Yeah, thank you. Sanchez, you want to also, as well as Chaturi, to make some?
Just one word, I would say, holistic view of these problems. There is not one thing that solves it all, but as a community of security officers, of software officers, of HR, communicate, work together, and train and put security of our employees and of our data at the center. And I'm very optimistic we'll come up with innovative ways to go through these periods and the ones that are coming ahead of us.
Chaturi?
Yeah, I just wanted to say the emotional intelligence part and its importance cannot be, emphasized enough. The leader in us and us bringing out the clarity to our people, and the courage that we can go through this together and give the level of humanity and the communication with them and understanding at all levels. I think that would come through more than anything else for our success.
Okay.
Nista, just to add something, I think one of the areas that we'll have to focus as employers is to get used to the fact that, as policymakers, not as even employers, to get used to having work done out of the employment realm, because I think we are seeing transitions taking place already, and there are lots of opportunities, and we must encourage that, because that will be a solution to recover as well as maybe a solution in the long term as well. So this is something that I would actually want all of us to look at, because whatever way, if we can make an income and contribute to consumption, that will be the base for recovery. So, and also developing skill set, even for to work from home, and even CEOs, supervisors, line managers, as Dinesh mentioned, will have to get used to different skill sets in getting or ensuring that the work is done. I don't think, as I mentioned earlier, there will be close supervision as such, but we will have to get used to different skill set in managing employees, and also the how the work is done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to say that we saw something that was mentioned earlier on when you were not in the panel online, is where Hasita said be natural, right? Hasita, you mentioned something. So something that happened at the background was
very interesting.
I just
we had proof. We had
authentic.
proof.
That's authentic. Thank you very much. On behalf of ICC Sri Lanka and CIMA and Daily FT, I'd like to thank all these panelists, Sanchez actually from France, as well as Chaturi, Dinesh, Hasita, Kanishka, thank you for eventually making it and also giving us a sort of memorable view at the end. And Tanziza for all your very frank and thought-provoking insights, I would say, in this new idea of working from home in a fairly volatile and equally dynamic situation. So thank you very much. And I'd like to thank the goal sponsor of this webinar, Fortinet, for extending much more than giving a resource person into this whole webinar. So I hope we have covered most of the issues, but I think as it's a very challenging environment, we can have multiple webinars on working from home, and we'll have more issues to tackle with. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.